we were able to catch up with director Michael Priest, where he set a record for the most amount of episodes directed. And he was also responsible in filming each of the cast members shooting JR so that nobody knew who did it.
You know, Michael shared some behind-the-scenes secrets and even real-life drama at the South Fork Ranch.
So we're with Michael Priest, the director of Dallas, which is pretty incredible that we're all reuniting tonight.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love seeing, well, I saw Joan Van Arc, who I haven't seen in, 30 years, because she was in the very first year, but I did Knots Landing also, so I got to know her. But just running into Cherie and Kathy and Charlene and Patrick. I hadn't seen Patrick since we wrapped.
Really?
Yeah, well, we did a movie of the week after the show finished. It was called, I don't know, something Ewing's.
How, you know, as a director, how was this group easy to work with?
Oh,
I mean,
they didn't need it. I don't mean to knock myself, but they didn't need a director. They could stage a scene. We'd go in, and as long as you had a bar at the head of the, and shoot across the bar.
Yeah.
They would and find you never had to do a takeover because somebody got blocked, because they would either push each other out of the way or gently do it so you wouldn't see it on film. And so because if they didn't want to stand behind somebody. They seldom did not know their lines. They ad-libbed a lot if they couldn't remember the line.
I was going to ask that very question. How do you sit with ad-libbing?
If it made sense to the story, we had an executive producer, the guy who behind it all was Leonard Katzman, and I'm replacing him today because he's gone. But he was the best. And one day, because they ad-libbed so much and changed the thing, he put out a script every episode, every 6.5 days, and he put a blank one out. 60 pages of just blank pages. Said, well, you all, the cast, you write so well anyway, you just write the whole script. And that taught them a lesson for about one day, maybe. Then they wouldn't. Then they went back to ad.
Everybody kind of got the message.
They knew what they were doing, and
So Dallas became a iconic cult classic, basically, and there was especially the episode "Who Shot JR." There was a viewership of 90 million people. Did you anticipate when you started Dallas and you started working with it that it would ever become what it is known today?
I did not know. I told a story about I was working on a show called The Runaways, and Lenny Katzman called me the first year. Said, I have a series called Dallas, and told me what it's about. And I said, no, I'm on this series. It's going to be the biggest hit in the whole world. And Dallas, it won't go anywhere. Well, we made 11 episodes. And then, so Lenny made me suffer for a year. And before I came, you let me on the show. It was great.
So curious, how often did you shoot? What was the schedule like?
Well, unfortunately, we had to finish. Most television shows, you hear actors being interviewed and they complain, oh, we shot till 10 o'clock at night and I'm working and I never get any sleep. We tried to not finish before lunch. And if we shot till 4 o'clock, producers would come down and say, what's wrong? It was great. And they said, oh, save at least 1 or 2 shots for after lunch.
Gotcha. So we know that they showed the house South Fork. And then there was another location was where like the interior of the house was.
One was at MGM Studios was now Sony in Culver City.
Yeah.
And the house there is like a 3,000 square foot house in Dallas, the real one. But we had a floor built on the stage that had like 8 bedrooms. I don't know where it would have gone, and long, wide hallway.
I get the hallway. I can picture it.
Yeah. And Donna was living there, and Ray Krebs, and why would JR being multi-millionaire? They still live with their mother.
They still live. In fact, you asked me that question when we were watching the series this past weekend. All these guys all got more money than they know what to do with, but they all live at home with mom and dad.
So I also heard there was rumors that there might have actually been some difficulty working with the man who owned the property that the iconic house is on. What can you say to those rumors?
He sold things. He could say South Fork, the ranch, but he couldn't say Dallas. So he was selling hats and T-shirts. And so one day the big wheels from Lorimar were there, and I had a hat on that said Southport, and they'd given it to me or something, and he said, how much was it? I said, I paid $25 for it. And he said, you what? Because, if it said Dallas, Lorimar would have gotten the money.
Right,
part
right,
of it.
yeah.
Very good. All right, thank you very much for being at the reunion. You definitely contributed to a huge part of making this whole event a success as well.
It was incredible to hear the director's take and view on the show. We still have several more interviews coming up with the iconic Audrey Landers and Joan Van Arc. That is coming up later on.
Yes, before that, we also want to recognize that the show had a very long running. For over 13 years, many characters had come and gone to keep the story fresh and exciting.
We had a chance to sit down with Cherie Wilson, who played April Stevens Ewing, and Kathy Podwell, who played Callie Harper Ewing, the second wife of J.R. Ewing. Both ladies contributed to the spicy and exciting storyline. Okay, folks, I'd like to introduce Kathy Podwell and Cherie Wilson.
Hello. Thank you. Hello.
It's a pleasure to have both of you here. So, well, obviously Dallas became a cult classic and huge viewerships in the 90 million for, say, the episode Who Shot JR.
90 million, really?
90 million.
Yep.
Think about that, especially for the time.
We did our homework.
It was the most watched show around the world at the time.
That's right, and it's been translated in almost 90 languages as well.
There were 3 networks. It's not like today where you've got Netflix and Prime and what. I mean,
And the
content
internet.
is endless. Right, and the internet. It was 3 networks, and you watched it live or you missed it,
Now, the original cast did a few episodes or seasons before both of you came along, right?
Oh, yeah.
I was on year 7 to 13.
There you go.
The last 5 years.
And
I was on 10 through 13.
you and your brothers, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
See, I remembered. So,
That's
what did
right.
it feel like joining? Because they were like glue. The impression that we're getting just speaking to them earlier here is that it was a family. So you guys joined this family. How did it feel?
Yeah.
Join.
Well, first of all, I was terrified, and so I learned my lines. I learned everybody's lines in any scene I was doing. I'm like Larry. I was like, he goes, "Do you know your jokes?" So I said, "Yeah, I know my lines. I know your lines." And he goes, "Oh," and so, at
like,
one point he
"Want me to tell-"
tested me, and I went.
Oh,
He goes,
no.
"You really do know my line." And he said, relax. He goes, "We're one big family," and it was like that from Jumpstart. It was. Linda is an angel that still has wings. She's just somehow still on Earth. Patrick is the funniest guy on Earth. Larry, Kenny. I mean, it was
Magical. It was magical.
Yes.
It was.
And they're so welcoming and so loving, and it's just
to
it's
come
just-
on to an iconic show.
yourself every day.
Yeah,
going,
absolutely.
is this really happening to me?
Which leads us to one of our questions, like how did Dallas really impact your lives? Both on a personal and even career level.
Well, I started watching in high school. So.
Oh, yeah.
And I told Larry that, and he goes, "Excuse me."
Yeah. Like, don't say that again,
Don't
ever.
ever
Yeah.
say that again. I was like, no, but I was a huge fan. I was a huge fan first, and so.
Oh, how cool is that to be a huge fan and all of a sudden you're in the show?
Oh, and I had so much awe, and I revered, their talents, their characters. I just, it was a dream come true. It is a dream come
It
true
is.
still.
Absolutely. And now all these years later to look back and go, oh my gosh, I was on that show. Like, it's even reflecting upon it's even more meaningful in some ways that.
Well, you both obviously had encounters with J.R. Ewing,
Yes.
who everybody
Yes.
loved to hate, and then the rest of the
delicious.
cast.
And we love to love him.
Yes. Love to hate him.
Kathy and Cherie. Kathy and Cherie.
Yes.
Yes. So it was hard to hate him.
Well, on that note, enjoy the reunion.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Will.
Nice
Thank
talking
you.
to both of you. And
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
We really appreciate
Enjoy
it.
this
Thanks,
night.
guys.
And enjoy the rest of your evening.